Well, one of the things that I think is quite ironic is that Russia right now in Moscow is hosting talks with Turkey, uh, Iran, and they're talking about what's taking place in Syria. Remember, Turkey just made an announcement to the Muslim world to unite to bring down Israel, and so here's Russia and Turkey. Both of them mentioned in Ezekiel chapter 38, and
As
they're
as a
talking.
coalition that will come together and move against Israel.
Right, yeah. And so the third partner that joined them is Iran. So you got Russia, Turkey, Iran, all three mentioned, and their talks are about the situation on the Syrian border. And so if people don't think that the whole objective there is to find a spot to invade Israel, so Israel's got Lebanon and Hamas and Hezbollah on the north. They've got Gaza, the PLO, and Hamas on the south. They now have Russian ships in the Persian Gulf on the west, and they've got Iran joining forces on the east. They're surrounded, and and an interesting statement just a couple of days ago. They said we're used to fighting a war on two fronts, but now we actually find ourselves with the potential to have to fight a war on four sides. And as small as they are, that's really an incredible task for them to do. And I'm not surprised because, as you know, we're approaching the 75th birthday of Israel. And so anytime Israel celebrates, that always brings a chance for potential destruction from their enemies. And I think that's what they're revving up for.
Mm. So again, the stage is being set for what appears to be for Bible prophecy to be fulfilled. I understand Benjamin Netanyahu has been studying the Old Testament book of Ezekiel. Of course, being Jewish, he would only study the Old Testament probably. And I understand he's been studying the book of Ezekiel and is very, very aware of the Gog Magog prophecy that talks about Iran and Russia and Syria and Turkey and these nations all coming together against Israel. Have you heard that too, Dr. Linstead?
Yes, I have. And also, as you know, I had the privilege of being a host for Mr. Rabin, a former prime minister of Israel and former defense minister when he was in the United States. And I asked him about Israel because, and he knew Ezekiel 38. And so
What did he
I
say about
remember,
it? Well, I mean, tell me.
well,
I don't. I think I've heard
okay,
you make passing reference to this, but
yeah,
don't spare any details. I want to hear about this.
okay. Well, actually, I was at a lecture that he was giving. I was his host for a couple of days when he was here at the university, and it was so enjoyable to visit with him. We celebrated his birthday, as a matter of fact, and he was just a very wonderful man to get to know. And so, of course, I'd have time for questions, and so I asked him. I said, is this important? The fact that Israel's back in the land, and he says, yes, it is. And so I said, well, I said, how do you know if this is really important, if this is a fulfillment? Because he believed that it was a fulfillment. What he was doing back then, he thought was a fulfillment of the Bible. And so he looked at it as that. So I said, yeah, but I said, how do you know that Israel's not going to be driven out of the land and they have to come back, and driven out of the land and they have to come back? I mean, how do we know? And so what he said was interesting. He said, well, he said, I know this is the right time, because he said the Bible says that when Israel comes back, there'll be one stick and not two. And to be honest, I'd studied that passage a lot of times, but I never really saw the significance of that. And so I checked out what he was talking about. And remember how that when Israel under David was one nation, under Solomon one nation, and then after the sons of Solomon, they split into Judah and Israel. And from that time all the way through until they were slaughtered in 70 AD, they were two nations. But when they were discussing about coming back, they decided that they would come back not as two nations, but as one. And so in his mind, he said, yeah, they're not going to be displaced and come again. We're here to stay, because the Bible said when they come back as one stick. And so we watched that, because when they came back and the United Nations recognized them in May 1948, they come back as a single united Israel. And so he saw that as a very significant point. And I look back on that and say, wow, what insight. And that's the advantage of being a Jew and being raised in the Jewish scriptures, and how he looked at that. Because I was talking about, it says that Israel's going to be a great army, and he would say, yeah, we are. And Colonel Yehuda Levi, the great general of Israel, fought in 5 major wars, won all 5, and eventually became the president of the Jerusalem Post. I remember him talking about the fact that, that Israel was a great army, and so these people are aware of the prophecies of God, and I think that's why there is this renewed interest in what is taking place in the world in terms of military buildup. The sad thing is that Israel has lost her best friend, and yet at the same time, another aspect that I see in the Bible is that Israel is going to have to be dependent upon God. The Bible says that it's not even Israel's own strength. I think of Israel as a mighty army and a incredible intelligence, and their ability to fight is unparalleled. But when it comes down to the fight against these nations, in Ezekiel 38 and 39, God alone delivers them. It's not their great military power that delivers them. It's not their friend, the United States, that appears to be is going to go downhill and dissolve. They don't deliver them, but instead, what delivers them is the grace and the goodness of God.
Wow, that's amazing.
Well, I think the idea of the 75th birthday is interesting, and since I talked to you, I've done a little research. Matter of fact, you notice I'm wearing my Israeli blue
I do.
sweater
I do. Yeah.
to commemorate this, and but May 15th, 1948 is actually the anniversary. And so in 1948, it was quite a ceremony because the founders read aloud and then signed the country's Declaration of Independence. But what is taking place today is sometimes some of those, and Mr. Netanyahu is one, they celebrate it on this day because this is the 5th day of the Hebrew month in which the independence took place. So on the Jewish calendar, it would be our April 24th and 25th, which marks the 75 years. But we go by a solar calendar, and so that's how come we continue to celebrate it on the May 14th, 1948 date. One other thing I want to mention, we just finished that time of Ramadan and Passover and Resurrection. And so the 3 religions were all there. And now we approach this 75th anniversary. But I think I sent to you the article on the fact that the Jews were actually banned from the Temple Mount.
Yes.
And so for 12 days during their most important holiday, that would be Passover, they were banned from being on the Temple Mount. Islam took it over, and now the Ramadan season is over, so the Jews are allowed to go back. And the desecration that occurred on the Holy Mount is really disgusting. It shows that there's no respect for that site. I dare say no one else would have done that. It reminds me a little bit of the story of Solomon. Remember when there was a baby that was in question, 2 women were claiming, this is my baby. And so Solomon, his unique wisdom was this. He said, all right, he said, then I'll take the baby and I'll divide it. And the real mother said, no, don't take the child's life. I'd rather have the baby live and be given to her. And so Solomon detected this is the real mother. And so maybe by looking at this, we find out who the real owner of the Temple Mount is. If you don't own it, you don't mind desecrating it. You don't mind putting it in shambles, leaving garbage on these places. But if it's really a place of treasure and value, then you say, no, let's take care of it. No matter who's up here, it's better to take care of it because it's a holy site. And so I think that goes a long way in telling who the real owner is. And to add another player to the game, do you know that China has just offered to facilitate the peace between Israel and the Palestinians? I mean, do you see what's happened? The United States has left, and we left a vacuum. And when we left supporting Israel, we left our best friend in the Middle East by far. We left the people who give us incredible intelligence information. Their help to us in terms of national security on a worldwide basis is unparalleled, the relationship we've had until now. And we've just really left them high and dry. This current administration has deserted them. And so now, who steps in? A bigger presence of Russia, a bigger presence of Iran, a bigger presence of China, and Hezbollah, Hamas, and the PLO are going crazy, sending missiles in. Why in the world? It seems so obvious to me. Why can't the world see? Why can't the United States see that what we've done is a horrible thing to one of our best friends?
Indeed, indeed. Dr. Rob Linsted, BibleTipNow.org, BibleTipNow.org, which stands for Bible Truth and Prophecy, BibleTipNow.org.